Welcome to our podcast. How to make new friends.
I've been thinking about how hard it is to make new friends as an adult. It's strange, right? When we were kids, we'd just sit next to someone in class, ask their name, and boom, we were friends. Now it feels like every step takes so much effort. We overthink everything. What if they don't like me? What if I sound weird? What if they already have enough friends?
Yeah, I feel that too. It's like there's this invisible wall between us and other people. Even when we're in the same room, we smile, we say hi, but we don't really connect. And deep down, we want someone to laugh with, to talk to about small things, random things, real things, but we're scared we might not be enough.
I think part of the problem is we expect friendships to happen instantly, like magic, but real connection takes time. It starts small. One short conversation, one shared joke, one moment where you feel safe being yourself, and slowly it grows.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we wait too long. We wait for the other person to make the first move, to start the conversation, to send the invite. But what if they're waiting too? What if they're just as nervous? Someone has to go first. And maybe that someone can be us.
That's the thing. We don't need to be super interesting or funny or cool. We just need to be real. Like, hey, I don't know if you're free this weekend, but I'd love to grab a coffee and chat. Simple, honest. It's not about being perfect. It's about being open, and it's okay if not every person becomes a close friend. Not everyone will click, and that's fine. But the only way to find the right people is to keep showing up, keep being kind, keep giving people a chance to know the real you.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, most people are just looking for someone who makes them feel seen. Someone who listens, who remembers the small things, who makes life feel a little lighter. And sometimes that starts with just one smile. One, how's your day going? One moment of courage.
I think one of the reasons people find it so hard to make friends now is because we're scared of being misunderstood. Like, what if I open up and they don't get it? What if I share something and it gets awkward? So we play it safe. We keep it light. We talk about the weather, about work, about stuff that doesn't really mean anything. But deep down, we're hoping someone sees through all that and still wants to stay. Sometimes I catch myself holding back. Not because I don't want to connect, but because I've been let down before. You know that feeling when you thought someone was a real friend, but they slowly disappeared, or they changed, or you realized they were only around when things were good. Yeah. And after a few of those, you start to build walls without even noticing. You still smile, you still laugh, but part of you stays hidden, just in case. But then I remind myself, if I want something real, I have to show up fully, not just the nice parts, not just the easy stuff, but the whole picture. The things that make me human, the things I used to think would scare people away, are often the very things that bring the right people closer. It's like, the more honest I am, the more I give someone else permission to be honest too. And that's how it starts. You say something real, and they say, wait, me too. And suddenly you're not strangers anymore. I also think it helps to let go of the pressure. Not every conversation has to turn into a deep friendship. Sometimes it's just a kind moment. Sometimes it's the beginning of something. Sometimes it's just a smile that made someone's day better. That still matters. But when it does feel right, when the energy clicks, when the silence feels comfortable, and the laughter feels easy, hold on to that. Don't overthink it. Don't try to be impressive. Just be present, because that's all friendship really is. Two people showing up for each other, even in the little things. And sometimes the people who become your closest friends aren't the ones you expected. They're the quiet ones who sat next to you for weeks before you spoke. They're the ones who texted you out of nowhere when you were having a rough day. They're the ones who remembered something small you said and brought it up weeks later. And you think, wow, they noticed. I've learned that making friends doesn't start with finding the perfect people. It starts with being a little braver, a little more open, a little more patient, and trusting that the right people will see you for who you are and stay.
Yeah, that really stayed with me. Because I think so many of us are just waiting for someone to go first, to say the first word, to break the silence, to take that first small step. But we forget we can be that someone. It doesn't have to be something big. It can be just, "Hi, I like your jacket." Or, I saw you reading that book. I love it too. Those little things, they open doors. And most of the time, people are more open than we think. They just don't always know how to show it. I remember this one time, I was sitting in a coffee shop, felt kind of off, and the person next to me just smiled, asked me if I was okay. We ended up talking for an hour. We didn't become best friends, but I'll never forget that. It reminded me that connection doesn't have to be long-term to be meaningful, but when it does become something more, when that connection grows, you realize friendship isn't about talking all the time or doing big things. It's about having someone who stays when things get quiet, someone who checks in, not just when it's fun, but when it's hard, someone who sees you, even when you're not at your best, and doesn't turn away. And I think we have to stop believing that we're too much, or not enough. We're not too quiet, too awkward, too intense. We're just people, trying to find our people, and sometimes that takes time. But it helps to notice the good in others, and say it out loud. You make me feel calm. Or, I like how you really listen when I talk. That kind of honesty builds trust, and trust is the foundation of every real friendship. Sometimes it's not that we don't have friends, it's that we're not giving those friendships the space to grow. We get caught up. We assume they're busy, or that they don't think of us. But sometimes all it takes is one message, one "I thought of you today," to bring someone back into your life. And for anyone listening who feels like they're always the one reaching out, I get it. It can feel tiring, like you care more, but don't give up. Some people don't know how to express it, but they still appreciate you. Sometimes they're just waiting for a sign that it's safe to care again. Friendship isn't always balanced in every moment, but over time, if it's real, it evens out. So if you find someone who shows up, who remembers little things, who makes you laugh when you didn't think you could, don't take it for granted. Tell them, let them know they matter. We all want to be chosen, but we forget that we can choose too. We can choose to see someone, to listen, to care. And that one choice might be exactly what someone else needs, to believe they're not alone.
You know what else I've been thinking about? How friendship doesn't always look the way we expect it to. Like sometimes we imagine our closest friends will be the ones we talk to every day, the ones who live nearby, who always have time, but real life isn't like that. People get busy, they move away, they change jobs, they go through things they don't always talk about, and it's easy to take that distance personally, to think, maybe they don't care anymore. But more often than not, they do. They're just trying to hold everything together, the same way we are. I've learned that it's okay if friendships shift. They're not broken. They're just evolving, and sometimes that space gives both of you room to grow. So when you come back together, you're not the same, but you still fit in a new way. And then there's this whole thing with expectations. Sometimes we expect one friend to be everything for us. Our confidant, our cheerleader, our therapist, our partner in crime. But no one can be all that, and it's not fair to them or to us. That's why it's beautiful to have different kinds of friends. The ones you call when you need to vent. The ones you can be silly with. The ones who push you to be better. The ones who just sit with you when words aren't enough. And here's something I've realized about myself. There were times I thought I had no friends. But looking back, I did. I just didn't always recognize them, because they didn't show up in the way I imagined. Like, someone who always sent me funny videos, or someone who remembered my birthday, or someone who made space for me in group conversations. They didn't always have long talks with me, but they made me feel like I belonged. And that counts too. We also don't talk enough about how hard it can be to make friends when you're different. Different culture, different energy, different background. Sometimes people don't know how to relate to you, and that can feel so isolating. But I've found that being different can be a bridge, not a wall. Because when you own who you are, really own it, you attract people who aren't looking for perfect. They're looking for real, for depth, for something they don't get from everyone else. And the best part? You don't need 100 friends. You don't even need 10, even one. Just one person who gets you, who stays, who laughs with you when life is messy, can change everything.
Yeah, that really resonates with me, especially that part about not needing a crowd. Just one person who stays. I think sometimes we overlook how powerful one honest connection can be, because we're too focused on quantity, on being liked, on having a full social calendar. But you're right, It's the depth that matters. And I also think we make this whole making new friends thing feel harder than it needs to be. We overthink it. We worry about saying the right thing, or we wait for the perfect moment. But sometimes the simplest way to make a new friend is just to be around people who care about the same things you do, like joining a small book club, or going to a pottery class, or even just showing up to the same cafe every week. So people start to recognize your face, that kind of slow familiarity. It builds something real, even if it starts with just a nod or a shared smile. Eventually, someone says, "Hey, didn't I see you here last week?" And just like that, you're not strangers anymore. Volunteering is another one. I feel like we don't talk about that enough. When you volunteer, you meet people who already share something with you, a cause, a belief, a desire to help. And those shared values, they make conversation easier, more natural, because you're not trying to impress. You're just trying to do something good, together. And one thing I've learned recently is that we shouldn't underestimate the power of going first. If you're at an event, or even in class, just turning to the person next to you and asking, "How's your day been?" Or, "Have you been here before?" can unlock something unexpected. Most people want connection. They're just waiting for permission. And when you go first, you give them that permission. Celebrating small wins in conversations helps. You don't need to click instantly. You just need to feel like, okay, this was a good interaction, and I felt seen. It might not lead to friendship right away, but if you keep showing up with that same openness, it adds up. And here's a big one for me, asking for help. I used to hate it. I thought it made me look weak. But actually, asking someone to show you how something works, or asking their opinion on something, creates a really easy and honest entry point into conversation. It tells the other person, "I trust you with this small thing," and people usually appreciate being trusted. Sometimes, the best way to make a friend is just by being a little softer, a little more curious, a little more human. Because when someone feels like you're not trying to sell yourself, not trying to prove anything, but just trying to connect, that's when something real can begin.
Yes, that's so true. Sometimes all it takes is one honest moment, one gentle effort, and something shifts. It doesn't have to be this big, impressive thing, just something that feels real. And you know what else I've found helpful? Just being present, like actually present, not staring at your phone, not waiting for the moment to pass, but letting yourself be open to what's happening right now. Because sometimes you'll be in line somewhere, or sitting on a bench, and a tiny shared experience happens, like someone laughing at the same thing you did, or both of you looking up at the same weird cloud. And if you're open, that moment can turn into something more. I think we've gotten used to thinking that making friends only happens in planned places, like school or work or events. But I've had some of the best conversations in elevators, on buses, even in laundromats. It's about noticing people and letting them notice you, not in a showy way, just human to human. And compliments go a long way, like genuinely saying, "I love how you explained that just now," or "That color looks amazing on you," but meaning it, not trying to get something from it. People remember when you make them feel seen. And when someone feels seen, walls start to come down, asking better questions helps so much. Not just "What do you do?" or "Where are you from?" but things like, "What's something that made you smile today?" Or, "If you could go anywhere right now, no responsibilities, where would you go?" Those kinds of questions invite stories, and people connect through stories, not facts, not labels, but through what they've lived and what they dream about. And I've learned that you don't always have to be interesting. You just have to be interested. Genuinely. Because when you show up with real curiosity, with no hidden agenda, people feel it, and they start to open up in return. Not always right away, but over time, they feel safe with you. And that's how friendships grow. Oh, and this might sound small, but just remembering names, it's such a simple thing, but it shows people you care. You paid attention. You valued that interaction enough to hold on to it. And it makes them feel less like a stranger and more like they matter. I think at the heart of all of this, it's not really about trying to find the right people. It's about being the kind of person you'd want to be friends with. Kind, present, open, and willing to make the first move. Even when it feels awkward, even when you're scared. Because the truth is, someone else in the room probably feels exactly like you, and they're hoping, praying, even that someone will notice them, and maybe that someone could be you.
That really landed with me, especially what you said about curiosity, how it doesn't take something big or clever, just a moment of real interest. I used to think I had to be funny or come up with something impressive to say, but more and more, I've realized that simple works best, and being genuine is always more powerful than being polished. You know one thing that's helped me? Just starting with shared space. If you're both at the same place, there's already something you have in common. You can say, "This place has such a calm vibe, doesn't it?" Or, "I always see people reading here. Do you come often?" And just like that, you've opened a door, without pressure, without needing a perfect line. And if you're at an event, you don't have to comment on the event itself. Sometimes it's softer to say, "I'm always a little awkward at these things. Are you?" It's honest, and it disarms people, because they don't feel like they have to perform with you. They can just be real. Another thing I like to do is notice something small and personal, not big or loud, but the kind of thing that makes someone feel truly seen. Like, "I love how you matched your socks with your scarf," or, "That book you're reading, it's one of my favorites." You're not just making small talk. You're starting from a place of warmth, and people feel that. And sometimes, starting a conversation isn't about words right away. It can begin with body language, a smile, eye contact, even sitting nearby and putting your phone away. So you're more available, so someone feels safe enough to speak first. It's not always on us to talk first, but it helps if we're approachable. One thing I've been practicing is asking people for their thoughts. Not just "How are you?" but something like, "What do you think about this music?" Or, "I'm torn between these two drinks. What would you pick?" It's light, but it gives the other person a role in your moment, and people usually enjoy being asked for their opinion, because it feels like you're including them in your experience. Even just a little. And there's also something really powerful about showing a bit of yourself first. You can say something like, "I always feel weird starting conversations, but I'm trying to get better at it." That kind of honesty creates space, and you'll be surprised how often people soften when you go first with a little truth. The best conversations, the ones that lead to real friendships, don't usually start with something perfect. They start messy, awkward, or even quiet, but they carry that invisible thread, that little spark of, "I see you, and I want to know more." And that's the real beginning, not just of a chat, but maybe of something deeper, the kind of connection that can grow roots if we let it.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I think that's the beauty of starting a conversation. It doesn't have to be grand. Just real, just human. And I also believe starting with curiosity about the other person's world is one of the best ways to kick things off. Instead of jumping straight into talking about yourself, you could say something like, "I noticed you're reading this book. How are you liking it so far?" Or, "I've never tried that brand of coffee before. Is it worth it?" It's a way to show that you're interested, not in a transactional way, but in a genuine "I want to know you" way. Another thing I've noticed is that people often forget how powerful humor is in a conversation. Now, I'm not talking about telling jokes or being a stand-up comedian, but just finding humor in everyday situations. Like saying, "Can you believe how hot it is today? I'm literally melting here." It breaks the ice without putting too much weight on the interaction. And when you share a laugh with someone, there's an immediate bond that forms. Laughter is one of the quickest ways to lower walls and help two people feel comfortable enough to talk. When you're starting a conversation, don't underestimate the power of listening. So often, we think we need to be the ones doing all the talking. But when you listen actively, you show that you value what the other person has to say. You can simply say something like, "Tell me more about that. I'd love to hear your thoughts." And that gives the other person space to open up. It makes them feel heard. And when people feel heard, they tend to open up even more. And that's where real connection happens. One of my favorite ways to start a conversation is by sharing a little bit of yourself in a light, non-pressured way. For example, you might say, "Have you ever been to that place down the street? I've been meaning to go, but I always chicken out." It's like saying, "I'm human, I have my doubts and interests, and I'm not perfect." That kind of vulnerability gives permission for the other person to show their real self too. And before you know it, you're having a real conversation, not just small talk. And let's not forget how important it is to show respect for personal boundaries. Sometimes people aren't ready to talk right away, and that's okay. Being aware of body language and following the other person's cues is so important. Sometimes a simple smile or a light comment is all it takes to start things off. And if they're not quite ready for a longer conversation, respecting that and giving them space shows maturity and patience, which are key in any kind of relationship. I think it's also about being open to vulnerability. It's okay if your first conversation doesn't go perfectly. No one expects perfection. The goal isn't to get it right every time, but to show up and be willing to make the effort. You might not click with everyone, but you will with some, and those are the connections that matter.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. I love how you said starting with curiosity, and how humor plays such a powerful role. It's like once we give ourselves permission to be real, it's like the door just swings open and we step in. And I think another approach that's really underrated is to start with something observational. When you're in a new place or situation, look around and comment on something that stands out. It's not about making a big statement, just something that makes the moment feel lighter and shared between you both. That little connection, that little laugh, can turn into so much more if you let it. I've also realized that starting a conversation isn't just about what you say, but also about the energy you bring into the space. People can feel when you're anxious, or if you're holding yourself back. It's hard to start a genuine conversation if you're not fully present. If you can allow yourself to be at ease and accept that the conversation might not go perfectly, you create a space where the other person feels comfortable to do the same. And then there's also the approach of starting with a shared goal or interest. I've noticed that when you're in a group setting, or even just in line somewhere, you can ask a question like, "Has anyone here ever tried this before?" Or, "Do you know what time they close this place?" It's an easy way to break the ice, without feeling like you have to dive into deep conversation. But it plants the seed for future exchanges, because once you've shared an experience together, it's a lot easier to continue talking the next time you see each other. And I've also learned that the best conversations start when you let go of expectations. It's easy to think that the goal of starting a conversation is to get something from it, like to make the other person like you, or to impress them with something clever. But when you let go of that, you find yourself enjoying the process itself. And that's when the magic happens. When both people can just be together in the moment, without any pressure. Another trick I've found is that you don't always have to have a reason to start talking. I used to think every conversation had to have a purpose, but sometimes just a, "Hey, I haven't seen you around before. Are you new to this group?" can be the perfect opening. It shows curiosity, without any agenda, and it gives the other person the freedom to choose how much they want to share. And if they're not ready, that's okay. It doesn't have to be the start of a long conversation, but it's a start. And sometimes that's all we need.
I couldn't have said it better myself. All of what you mentioned really touches on the essence of starting a conversation. It's about connection, being real, and keeping things simple. At the end of the day, people just want to feel seen, heard, and understood, right? And if we come into a conversation with that mindset, it makes everything flow so much easier. I love how you pointed out that it's about creating space for the other person to speak freely. It takes the pressure off, and the conversation just becomes more natural. I truly believe that once you give yourself permission to be human in a conversation, you can connect with others in ways you never thought possible. I think we've covered so many great points today. Starting a conversation doesn't have to be hard, and it certainly doesn't need to be perfect. It's just about taking that first step. Whether it's a shared experience, a simple compliment, or just a genuine question, that's all it takes to open the door to a deeper connection. And with that, I think it's time we wrap up for today. We've shared some real insights, and I hope it helps you the next time you're looking to start a conversation with someone new. Remember, it's not about impressing them. It's about being yourself and listening. If you've enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear how you approach making new friends and starting conversations. And of course, stay tuned for the next video, where we'll dive into more topics that help us grow and connect with the world around us. Thanks for joining us today. Take care and see you next time.